Hooray! Horse rape! Hey guys, this is episode 3 of Berserk 2016 called Night of Miracles. This episode in particular is certainly not a PG episode. I mean, we've had a little bit of gore, had a little bit of blood. This one delves a bit more into the rapey realms and also has a bit more nudity, some nip, and then some invisible nip, and then nip back again. It's weird. I suppose I should kind of give a brief thing of what I thought of the episode in case you didn't want to be spoiled but you wanted to know my thoughts. I thought it was okay. They do some stuff which differs from the manga and add some stuff in which I'm not too thrilled about, but it was fine. It was okay. It's not blowing me away, but it does have some interesting bits, but I wish it had been done better. Spoiler Bailet is gonna scream and bleed for us, so Mr. Bailet, if you'd please. Once again, thank you, Mr. Crazy Spoiler Bailet. So we start this episode where we left from the last episode. Guts has kidnapped Farnes, and Sepulchre is chasing after them, and he's like, oh no, demons! That's weird. But we actually have a very interesting little bit of dialogue between Guts and Puck, because in the last episode, she couldn't see Puck at all, and the explanation is because she has a very strong, rigid view of the world and subsequently can't see anything fey. It's actually quite an important plot point about the world. It's a world-building phrase because it explains a lot of how people, not just her, but a lot of people in the world react to these strange and odd creatures and why a lot of people don't know about demons or fairies or trolls or all that kind of stuff because people can't see them. And I think it's kind of interesting because some might argue that it's kind of a representation of our world because we used to believe in fairies and the fae and all that kind of interesting mystical stuff. There's a nice bit of 2D animation when Farnes is touched. It's like this weird little grandma spirit just kind of gropes her face and goes, oh, and she's like, ah! Because of course you would be. It's like this weird, gross, green, floaty, blobby thing touching you. Imagine Slimer was touching you. So as they're riding along, they come across a mansion, which is apparently what Guts has been after all along. I guess that goes all the way back to episode 1. It just seems to come out of nowhere. Because episode 1, he goes to the bar for no particular reason, it seems, to save Puck. Because we know why those scenes are there. And then he goes into the forest and he gets on the cart with the people and then rides along and then goes and meets the Holy Chain Army. But apparently that was all leading towards him coming to this mansion. Apparently, this was his plan all along. And the reason it doesn't make sense is because it's not in the manga at all. It's a shoehorned in bit, and I don't really know why. All of this stuff at the mansion, not all of it actually, I'd say about 90% of the mansion stuff is woo-woo, just made up for the anime. For instance, the dogs of the mansion are actually just wild dogs. I'd also say the transition between the dogs to the demon dogs is not done desperately well. It suggests here in the anime that the dogs are always demons and they're just hiding and disguising themselves like any other thing. While in the manga, it was the evil spirits that were just chasing Guts and Farnes on horseback possessed the dogs. The reason the dogs look like they do is not just because they're demons, but because they're possessed by human spirits, human evil entities, and that's why the faces look like people. Sort of. And the actual transition of them being possessed and turning into these things is bad. It just pans down from at the top of the screen them looking like normalish dogs to then right at the bottom of the screen them looking like the demon dogs. There's no actual transformation there, which is a bit boring. You know, it's not visually very interesting to see. So we get inside the mansion. It's a hunter's mansion, clearly, as there's a butt-ton of deer heads just bobbing about all over the place. Farnes is still tied up, Guts has blocked the doorway, the dogs burst in anyway. So Guts has bit a tussle with the dogs. Dogs don't win. Spoilers. And as she's running away through the mansion, she comes across a small man. Now this man, if you've read the manga, might look familiar. And you might say, Andy, who is he? He is the Swine Apostle. Is he the Keeper of the Hounds? Why, no. No, he's not. Does he have a backstory in the manga? No. No, he doesn't. He's not a normal person, and he wants to eat Farnes because she's a noble lady, And that relates back to his more humanizing backstory, which I'll touch on in a moment. Well, if you were interested to know where the swine demon was from, the swine apostle was from, he was from chapters 93 and 94. And the chapters in this episode are 123, 124, and 125. So it's a random, like, I guess we'll get something from previous chapter and bung it in here for some reason. Something that was a little bit annoying as well is poorly done shots. And it's because when the keeper of the hounds is saying, I'm gonna eat you, Farnes, he's behind her and he licks her neck, and Guts comes in, goes back to that shot, and he's not talking to Farnes, but you can't see his eyes, you can just see his mouth. He's talking to Guts, but it's not set up that you assume he's talking to Guts. It's assumed that he's talking to Farnes just because of how the shot's set up. It's badly done. It's cheaper because they didn't have to do any extra stuff. I looked at it and was like, oh, come on. Focus on the character you're talking to, or at least show his eyes. Like, just pan the camera up, looking at Guts, right? And the thing that is really annoying again is he transforms, but you don't see him transform into his apostle form. Guts draws his sword. You can see he's different because he's now higher up and he's like the little baby thing in Total Recall. And then the light kind of pans out a little bit more and you can see he's a big demon apostle. There was no transition. There was no change in him. He was not transforming. He just was. Like bad editing. It's meant to be an event when you see someone turn into a demon. One would assume. And another weird line, which I don't quite understand, is as encouragement when Guts is fighting the keeper of the hounds. Puck's like, do it like you always do, or like you usually do. It's Puck. You have been with him for 3 episodes. Lie. No, 2 episodes. Because you were barely in the last episode. For Puck, if you don't include the tree demon, which I kind of don't because it's not an apostle, this is the first time Puck's seen him fight an apostle. So he starts having tussle with the keeper of the hounds, and once again, there seems like there's a scene or a frame or something missing from the fight, as he's just randomly in the mouth of the keeper of the hounds. And what was the shots before him just randomly being inside of its mouth? Picture of Farnes's face. Because, of course, that's what I wanted to see, and I'm assuming they did that because it would have been too hard to CG animate him going into the mouth. Again, if we look back at the fight in the manga between him and the swine apostle, which are the same creature, he didn't have that hard of a time. He didn't have Dragon Slayer, so it made it a bit harder, but he whipped this thing. It was his first apostle fight, and he whipped it. He's struggling here. He's not having a good time. So we now get to talk about the Keeper of the Hound's backstory. I don't really think he should have had a backstory. It's like, why are we humanizing this thing when it's came in one episode and he's going out in the same episode? There's no point in humanizing him. They're meant to be these unpleasant monsters that you think, God, there's no way these could ever have been human. Also, the flashback sequence for his story is really bad. Like, legit terrible 2D animation with a filter put over the top. And as this is going on, Farnes runs away, runs into a room because they brought the horse into the house for some reason, to set up this scene effectively. Runs into the room and is like, I'm going to get away on the horse, and the horse is like, nope! And it's being possessed by a dude, and it gets a bit uncomfortable as it starts licking her breasticles and whatnot, and is about to mount her sexually. And last week I mentioned that the nipples weren't there, and occasionally they pop in and then pop out. And then we have a bit of character development for Farnes, which again is a little bit uncomfortable to watch as she's possessed by an evil spirit. It doesn't show you her getting possessed by an evil spirit, which maybe would have been nice and made a little bit more sense. I think I would have preferred to have seen that anyway, just a little purple blob just come in and go, or something like that. And so we learn that she's a bit messed up in the head, getting off on these kind of odd things. Even when she was whipping herself before God, apparently she was getting off on that a little bit, which she wouldn't admit, of the evil spirits inside of her, and kind of revealing these bad things about her. And she gets possessed. She gets possessed by the sun. In the manga, Puck has a weird little ability where you can get I think they're dandelions, I can't remember off the top of my head. He bumps fairly weak spirits and he kills them. Puck does shit all here. I would have preferred it if he'd just gone, because I really like that. It's one of those silly things about Puck. It's like he's useless, but he can be quite handy when when there's nothing at stake. He can be very useful. So he doesn't do that, unfortunately. And then we move into the final part of the anime, which is the prophecy that a White Hawk will come and save Midland from a darkness that's going to come and screw the entire country. And we get some shots of Midland not looking too good, but it's not very well explained what's wrong. There are just a few bodies lying about without any rhyme or reason to it. In the manga, there were big piles of corpses, quite a lot of corpses, piled on top of each other, and they gave a reason in the manga and said, there's a plague. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's why there's loads of dead people about. No explanation in the anime, it's just some dead people for some reason. Alright. And the Kershin, I think it is, army appears and you see an elephant. It's not very well done shot, and then the episode ends. And that's it. That's this episode of Berserk. It has a lot of unnecessary stuff in there. I guess, once again, to be an intro for people to catch up on stuff that they don't know. But it's got some really just terrible moving of shots to shots, not very well set up shots, and cutting some. Again, I understand it's an anime and they have to cut stuff, but I'm now on the other side where I'm watching. I've read the manga and know what they're cutting. It is quite annoying to see what they have cut and rearranged. And it doesn't feel as good or compelling. It's not drawing me in as much as the other stuff has. So yes, it is disappointing, but I'm 100% sure now how the season's gonna end. It is certainly the conviction arc. So we will continue to next week's episode, where we have the introduction of more of the church's members, the Holy Seas, or CE, anyway. Thank you guys for watching. Hope this video has been good and entertaining. Please leave your thoughts below on what you think of Berserk so far, how you think this inclusion of the Keeper of the Hounds and the change from the Swine Apostle is for you. Do you mind it? Do you not? I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys, and I will catch you for next week's episode. Ka-kunk!